Hello, lovely ladies. It's Marie with Birth Bliss, and today I have something a little different. I want to tell you about a really cool event that I'm a part of. It is called Intentional Living for Mothers. And the thing I love about it is that it is an audio event, meaning that you will listen to it and join in just on however you like to listen to your podcast. So it's super easy, super like you can just listen to it as you're driving or going for a walk or washing dishes. And it's jam packed with 30 conversations from thought leaders in motherhood. And I just love this. I just love this premise because I think that motherhood is such rich yet challenging territory. So I know that the conversations that you are going to hear are going to help you deepen your connection to yourself, to your little ones. They're going to help you live from intention and not just letting life happen to you. And they are going to enhance your well-being. And I am part of that conversation. So right after this, you can listen to the conversation that I recorded. So you get a sneak preview. And down below, I'm going to put the link to the whole audio event. It's completely free, and I really hope you'll take part. Okay, enjoy.
Hi, Marie. It's so good to see you. Thanks so much for being here.
And thank you for inviting me. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, same. Oh my gosh. So I want to hear from you your personal journey into becoming so passionate about women's birth experiences.
Yeah, so I think like many of us, like we get interested in this because we have our own experience that change us. And so when I was pregnant the first time around, I wanted a positive birth experience. And so, I thought I was doing all the things. Yeah, I was keeping active. I was paying a lot of attention to what I was eating. I assembled like a good team. I had a doctor and a midwife and a doula. So I felt like, and I did a prenatal class. So I felt like I was prepared. But
Mhm.
then when labor started, I got like overwhelmed super quickly. Um, and it was just more intense than I had anticipated. Even though like labor pain is sort of like legendary, it still like caught me off guard. And I ended up in the cycle where I was sort of like dreading the next contraction. And then, just sort of suffering through it. And I made it through. Um, but it felt like a lot of struggle and a lot of pain the whole way through. And in the end, I walked away thinking that, that was kind of like the best that it could be because it was a natural birth. It was healthy, like there were no big complications. So like by like a lot of like exterior markers, it would have been considered a like good birth. And so like I was like, well, I guess that's the best, right? And then I encountered a story from a woman who I really admired, and she talked about how her birth had been like she had enjoyed labor. And those words, like they blew my mind because I had not enjoyed my labor. And I was like, wait a second. That's possible? She's like, I loved birth. And I was like, what? And so I started digging into like what she had done because in her story she had kind of talked about like the different preparation tools that she had used. And so I was like, okay, that cracked open in my brain like this window of possibility, that I didn't have before. And so, but I didn't really have a roadmap either. So I was like, I dug because I was already interested in a lot of mind body tools. So I just never thought about using those mind body tools towards birth specifically. So yeah, so I started like digging and then like crazy cool things happened. So like I had decided that I needed to like do mental rehearsal. Like I was like all these like top level athletes when they're preparing for like their big Olympic event, like there's a mental component. And I was like I was missing that. And so I was like I want to like do some sort of like meditation about the birth. And I went to a house party And this woman who I had never met before, I was like really early pregnant. I'd kind of just announced it to my friend. And so I'm at this house party, and this friend of a friend who's like never met me before just walks up to me and goes, "Hey, Anna told me you were expecting, and so I brought this. I thought you might like it." And it was like a birth visualization. And I was like, okay, like the universe just gave me this. This is what I've been looking for. So I just promised myself that I would like practice. I would do like the emotional and mental work. And it like radically changed my second and my third birth. And then like those births I did, like I really did enjoy the experience. And so then I was like, oh my goodness, look what's possible. And so I wanted, yeah, and I wanted to share what I'd learned. And so that's, yeah, that's what brought me to this.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like this is not about my birth experience, but I just want to share something really quick before you start talking about the next question. Um, I've always been somebody who like likes to do things the difficult way. So of course, when I got pregnant, I was like, I want to have a natural birth and found hypnobirthing, which we're going to talk about in a minute. And I felt like that. Like I really enjoyed. I felt it like it was so empowering
Mhm.
and so transformational. Like both of my births with my babies, even though one ended up an emergency C-section and one was a VBAC unmedicated. So very different the way the outcome was, but like I felt exactly what you're saying. Like I really felt it so empowering and transformational, and it was all to do with hypnobirthing. So I want you to share about, for those listening who might not know, what is hypnobirthing and how exactly do you start like preparing for that when you're pregnant?
Yeah, like so what I love is like that it's a very holistic approach to birth because if you think about the birth process, like it's obviously very physical, like it's the largest physiological change the human body can do. But it's also like a very spiritual, emotional, and mental experience. Like it happens to you on every level. And I think that sometimes with traditional childbirth education, there's a strong focus on like information rather than skills. And like information is powerful and it's a really good part, but it's only a part. The other piece is like you want to build skills. And I think the really cool thing about building the skills that you do in hypnobirthing is that they are skills that build resilience. And there's skills that are going to serve you through that early journey of like mothering. Like I don't know if you found that, but I get told that all the time by my students that they're like, "Oh my God, like I thought I was just doing these like building these skills for like labor, but then like, oh my gosh, when my baby was crying, like it helped. Like or when I was trying struggling with breastfeeding, I used those skills." Did you find that for you?
Um, Maybe not as much. Like, it may for me, it was more like the birth itself, like just like the way that I was going through the, as you said, like the mind, body, soul and experience of it. I mean, it's very hard to still like dismiss like the sleep deprivation or like things that just like I was also my first one was like not expecting to be recovering from a C-section, wasn't expecting I had a lot of bladder problems. I had um, my daughter was having a lot of issues with getting milk. Like I didn't have enough milk supply, so we had to end up supplementing. So there were other things happening that like it was a lot, but like it probably did a little bit. And I do think like overall, resilience wise, yes, I can relate to that. Yeah.
Because I think that like one of the skills that you're building when when you're preparing for labor is uh, that ability to hold both intention and like flexibility. And I think that's really key, both in early motherhood and in the birth experience, because in both situations, there are things that you can control, and then there are parts that you can't.
Mhm.
And that's a tricky line to walk. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is that we swing to one end or the other of the pendulum. So you'll like I'll encounter women who will be like, well, I don't know how the birth will unfold. So, and I don't want to like get attached to like it being a certain way. So, like, I haven't really, I haven't really considered like doing any preparation because like you don't know what's going to happen.
Mm.
And then you get the other end of the pendulum, right? Where you get like, I want it to be this way. So I'm like doing all these things. And I think that the best way actually is that middle path
Yeah.
where like you are setting intention, you are building skills for like relaxation and for um, dealing with the unexpected. And then when you actually show up in the experience, you're like just letting it unfold and like being curious about like how is this going to go? And then
Absolutely. Yeah.
like that certain openness.
Yeah.
So
I can relate
yeah.
to that. My first one, I had a very like detailed birth plan, and my second one, I had a very loose birth plan. I'm like, these are the main things that I want. I want, dimmed lights. I want to be in the tub as much as possible. Like just kind of like the environment, but like there wasn't a lot of like detail because I knew it's not really up to me. It's gonna end up being the way that they want to come in, but at least like I have kind of like that environment that I want set up, which is part of hypnobirthing as well, like the music that I wanted and when I wanted to switch to really be in my zone and put my headphones on and really just be in my own world, like that's just yeah, it's really
I
special.
think, and I think there's like a really important component of like, I know you were talking about like the idea of like womb wisdom and what does that like mean and to me. And I think that's a lot about following your body's lead. Like your body knows how to do this. Like we are designed as women to give birth, and there are so many mechanisms that are built in to our bodies to help us with it. But I think a lot of times what ends up happening, I know it happened to me in my first, is that like the stress and the anxiety like shut down a lot of those natural mechanisms and made the whole like because I was like fighting it without realizing I was fighting it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's a big part of one of the things that hypnobirthing does. And because you're doing all this practicing with relaxation and with breathing and mind visualization, I think you come into the experience feeling a lot more at ease
Mhm.
and not as like tight and anxious. And
Yeah,
that's like that's a gift on it in and of itself, but then there's like really strong physical like um downstream effects of that.
absolutely. And like when you're talking, it's bringing up for me like hypnobirthing prepares you to, like you said, like have that connection with your own wisdom within, and you feel so much more empowered to even like advocate for yourself or your partner to advocate for you with something that you wish, like versus just listening to somebody else who isn't in your body, who doesn't really know fully, like because you start to get these feelings more and more when you are giving birth. That's really when it started for me when I went through that birth experience the first time. So that was just coming up for me is like yeah, yeah. I think hypnobirthing, like the visualizations and the meditations and like the preparation is all about like your body's built to do this and you should
And you
feel
can trust your
empowered.
bodies, you can
Yeah, you can
trust your
trust.
body like the insights it's giving you. So like
Yeah.
for example, just like as it's as simple as your positioning. Like I talk a lot about in my preparation course about how like there isn't like the perfect position to give birth in. There are a whole bunch of really good ones, but the one that's going to be like the best for you is the one that's going to feel the best because it feels the best because it's the easiest for your baby to navigate the bones of your pelvis.
Mhm.
And so if you just move through a bunch of different positions and you listen to your body and you stay in the position that feels the best, that's going to be the easiest one, the best one for you. But if we're waiting for that sort of external um, person to tell us like, okay, now lie on your side, or like now go on all fours, or now like get it, into a semi-reclined position, you lose that, and then you start, you don't trust yourself. And I'm always like, if I can give my women like one gift, that they listen and they build enough trust in their own intuition and in their own body, like in what it's telling them, like that's a huge gift.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's so cool. Like I remember leading up to my birth, like I was having these meetings and the midwife will be like, "Are you nervous about anything?" And I was like, "No, I'm so excited." Like I'm, like to get to that point where you're like excited to do this like mini marathon that you're gonna go through. Because it is so empowering when you're like, "Wow, I just did that." Like that's so cool. I
Yeah.
just brought a life into the world.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like it's an everyday miracle. Like if you think about it, it really is because that at one point there was just one person, and then there's two. Like it's magic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's so cool. So I did want to ask you, yeah, we started kind of talking about this, but womb wisdom, like can you share more about just like the concept of womb wisdom and I guess just in general, like our intuition and how that's amplified in birth and through motherhood? Like what can we kind of take from our birth experience and continue to move forward with connecting with our intuition as a mother?
Yeah. I think that the whole birth experience, it it pulls away some of those like outside things and kind of brings you to the like heart of the matter. And I think when you go through that, it reveals parts of yourself that like you didn't quite know were there before. And I think that's like one of the part that like one of the gifts of it. And we know from research that when moms have a positive birth experience, and that doesn't like necessarily, mean a vaginal birth or a natural birth. It means that the woman afterwards feels good about her experience. When that happens and she's entering motherhood from that place, that is a much more empowered and secure place to enter motherhood from. And when a woman's been, you know, traumatized by a difficult experience, it's like you're coming into this very intense period of your life. Because like the early days of motherhood, they're intense. And you're coming in with like just not being as strong because you're still dealing with that, right? And so I think one of the lovely things is that when you start to prepare in a way that you go inward and you start to listen to yourself and you start to trust yourself and you start to trust the messages that you're getting, just about you. Because like in the end of the day, you're the expert about you. But sometimes in our busy lives, we're like always looking for like that outside information rather than going inward. And I think hypnobirthing does train you to look for answers internally. And I think that is like such a gift for motherhood. I always tell the moms that I work with, like, you love this baby more than like all those other experts out there, right? And so you will be motivated to find what works for you as like your family. And that might not be the same as what works for somebody else. And that's okay.
Yeah. 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 That's so beautiful. I love that. If people are really connecting with what we're talking about here and they want to learn more about your world and everything you do, I'm going to be sharing here the links to like your podcast and your website. But could you also share a little bit about the two free gifts that you have? It's the guide to an easier birth and also the mellow mornings for pregnancy. Could you just tell us a little bit about both of them if they want to go grab either one?
Yeah, if you want to go deeper, so on a practical level, like when we're looking at preparing with hypnobirthing, one of the really cool things it does is that it aligns you with the hormones. And you have like four really big important hormones that guide us through the labor process. So, and that are going to help. So we've got endorphins, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. And people might have heard of those because they're like really good feel-good drugs, basically, that your body produces. And all of them have a really important role to play during the labor process. And if we can get them flowing in high amounts, they support the process both emotionally, energetically, and physically. And so, and they're trainable. You can actually train, and that's what like a lot of the skills that we learn in hypnobirthing are skills that train us to get like a good release of these, naturally produced drugs. And so what I did is I created a guide called The Guide to an Easier Birth. And it's basically explains, like in deeper depth than I've just done right now, about these four hormones, what they do in labor, and how you can train your mind and your body during pregnancy to get more of them in alignment so that your birth is easier and more comfortable and just more enjoyable overall. So that's the guide for an easier birth. And then for those that are listening that might be like a little bit earlier on and they're like not quite there yet. Because like I know like in early pregnancy, like labor seems like a million miles away. I created a resource called Mellow Mornings for Pregnancy. And it is a really quick, like 5 minute self-care ritual that you do in the morning when you wake up. And right when we wake up is this like little bit magical time because we're still in our alpha brain waves. And our mind is very receptive. And so many of us start our day by like, jumping onto our phone. And then it's just like, it's like jumping in like the fast lane right off the bat. And then, the phone, it has like, especially email, you get stressed and all that. So I'm like, instead, give yourself the gift of like this really easy, simple, but powerful 5 minute ritual that you just do at the beginning of every day to just ease into your day. And so that's my other gift for people who are listening.
Those both sound amazing. Thank you so much for creating those and sharing those and being in conversation today with us. And yeah, thank you for being a part of this event.
Yeah.